Hello, people of the internet, and welcome to the first edition of our retrospective on the history of Godzilla in animation. I am, of course, your host, Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir, and here with me is an individual that you've seen plenty of times here on my channel. Give it up for Kaiju novelist, Mr. Matthew Dennion.
Hey everybody, it's a pleasure to be back on the show again. I hope you guys aren't getting too sick of me. I just love hanging out with you guys and Andre. So let's do this thing, man.
Absolutely. And now this was actually an idea that you had that in celebration of the upcoming American release, international Netflix release of Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, we decided, you approached me with the idea of doing a retrospective on the history of Godzilla in animation, and you came up with the idea of starting off with the Max Fleischer Superman short, The Arctic Giant from 1942.
Yeah, I think it's a really great way to start off because this short actually predates Godzilla by, 12 years?
Yeah, because the Arctic Giant came out in 1942, and the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which we know was a direct inspiration for Godzilla, came out in 1953, and then Godzilla came out the year after in 1954. And so it's crazy how similar these properties look, especially the creature itself, the titular Arctic Giant within the short. And so we have no direct proof of this, but we have a feeling that this may act as a precursor or like played a large influence in Godzilla's creation, as well as the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, given how similar the character is to Godzilla and how similar the origin is to the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
Yes, yeah, and it's also really cool because it gives us a view as to what confrontation, a much requested confrontation between Superman and Godzilla, could perhaps have looked like were to come together. So
absolutely. And so given how short this this piece of animation is, we're actually going to be doing a commentary for this particular thing. And so we decided to do introductions and get introductions out of the way so that we can properly start our commentary. So everybody, you can easily find the Arctic Giant either on DVD or in many of those compilations of public domain cartoons on VHS back in the 90s, or you can watch it here freely on YouTube, which is what we're going to do. We are going to see specifically a versions that's simply titled Superman the Arctic Giant 1942, uploaded by a user by the name of Public Superman. So that's the version we're going to be seeing tonight. All right, so everybody get ready. We're going to be pressing play in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, here we have the Paramount logo, and it is quite amazing how such a well-known and famous piece of animation history, especially one that's connected to a very well-known and copyright-protected character like Superman, ended up in the public domain. I'm not really sure what the technicals were, but I'm sure there must have been some legal loophole that must have allowed these collection of Max Fleischer shorts to slip into the public domain.
Right. I know the character of Superman himself obviously is not in the public domain, but all of these really well done Max Fleischer shorts are in the public domain. In fact, in terms of animation, even story, I don't think Superman is done better until the Bruce Timm series in the 1990s. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, looking back on the quality of the Max Fleischer shorts, I don't think anything has come close for the years that have come out since these shorts. I mean, the movement, there's such fluid movement, a lot of detailed backgrounds, the coloring is great, everything is bright, it's vivid, there are scenes that actually look quite terrifying, scenes that look amazing. It's like a level of quality that you rarely see, even today, to this day. There are like televisions and movies that don't look as good and as smooth and as fluid as the Fleischer shorts.
Right. Now, real quick, it occurred to me, this is in Siberia. I noticed on the Monarch timeline of MonsterVerse that there's something frozen in Siberia. They didn't say what it was. I don't think it's this directly, obviously, but I'm wondering if it's not a nice nod to this film. In the MonsterVerse.
I think when it comes to MonsterVerse, I know they've hinted at Ghidorah's origin in that they found him frozen somewhere.
In the South Pole.
Oh,
He's
the
in the
South Pole. Okay, because I know
Yeah.
that was a bit of like an indirect reference to like Dante's Inferno, with how
Yes.
Satan himself was frozen in the ninth level of hell.
Right, and had 3 heads, I believe.
Yeah, and here we have our what is supposedly a Tyrannosaurus, even though with modern science we know that looks nothing like a Tyrannosaurus.
No, but it is worth noting. I mean, it certainly looks man in a suitish, which is interesting that this is pre kind of suitimation for the most part, right?
Yeah. This was during the early days where people still believed that dinosaurs walked with their tails dragging in a more upright posture. Upright humanoid or like kangaroo posture. But it's also interesting to note that the monster itself has humanoid hands, like if it was being portrayed by a man in a suit. And that's a crazy thing, because
Exactly.
even like the Redosaurus from Beast from 20,000 Fathoms actually looked quite reptilian, like a natural like giant reptile, a giant lizard. Meanwhile, this here does not look like a natural creature. And you know what? I just realized this now, because this is like Max Fleischer, and he's known for doing like this is the era where everything was anthropomorphized, if that's an actual word.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It does make sense. Like, this is an age where, Bugs Bunny, Mickey Mouse, what was it, Felix the Cat, a lot of characters were more humanized. So maybe that was the idea, like, they're saying, hey, we're going to humanize a dinosaur here. Maybe that would explain, like, the hands and the posture and everything else.
What the other interesting thing, though, is the size of the creature, where it's clearly bigger than even at the time they would have known with scientific knowledge how big a dinosaur was. It's really kaiju sized, like city smashing proportions in this film.
Yeah, it's even larger than anything you would see in a Ray Harryhausen movie, and
Right.
It does look and feel pretty much like a Japanese approach to a giant monster movie.
Yes, and I don't know where they are, but it gets hot damn quick in that museum, apparently.
Oh yes, this must be like the middle of summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you're right.
I don't know what kind of climate a metropolis has, but it seems like it's more of that hot, humid vibe, like somewhere in like New Orleans.
Yeah. But you're right. It definitely looks like a Japanese monster film as opposed to what you'd see from an American film, even after this.
Right. Although it does have a bit of that American sensibility of like scientists attempting to go beyond their control. Like they're trying to take this monster out of its frozen home, and as a result they're paying for they're suffering the consequences of like bringing this creature out of his element, and now the creature is free and running amok. So it feels
Yes.
a bit American in that sense, like American
Right.
storytelling.
Like that monster on a loose type of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially like King Kong and the Lost World, especially. It's like the
Yes.
same story. Oh, Valley of Gwangi later on would do this.
And now another thing I want to point out here is, now those are machine guns. This monster, again, to be
yeah.
at least somewhat indestructible, which we wouldn't see from a lot of American monster films, from Kong or The Beast or The Lost World. Like, all those monsters would have succumbed to heavy machine gun fire, just bounced off of this big boy.
Yeah. Also, it just reminded me how cartoon animations have changed nowadays, where you couldn't really get away with this level of violence, even though it's fairly tame.
Right.
You would never see live gunfire or buildings being destroyed, especially in a post 9/11 world, the post 9/11 world that we live in today.
Right.
Buildings, they would avoid destroying buildings, especially with flying objects, and everyone would be shooting laser guns at least.
Right.
Oh, there we
Yeah,
go. There's the man in blue.
And interesting to note, the black S, or around a black S, and also you can tell this is Golden Age Superman, because I believe this is before he was given the power to fly. That's why he's hopping around a lot.
Yeah, and it does kind of look a bit awkward nowadays with how people usually envision Superman, but it is quite interesting seeing like such a well-made portrayal of Superman, and then being reminded, oh yeah, he didn't fly back then. So this is like way early on in his history.
Right. I mean, 42, he'd only been around for what, like 4 years maybe?
Oh wow, yeah. Usually I forget when he was made, but yeah, I know he was in the 30s.
He was like 38, so 4 years. This is another scene where this monster's wrecking this dam that pops up in a lot of Japanese kaiju films, right? Like Godzilla versus Megalon.
Mothra did that, I believe.
Yeah, quite a few.
Right, right. And, I just realized that this year is going to, as of the time that we're recording this in 2018, this is going to be the 80th anniversary of Superman.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
This thing I didn't get. Why would he think that these fire boats would be able to stop him when machine gun fire couldn't?
Gee, I wonder what this reminds me of. Certainly not a recent American adaptation.
No, not in the least.
And of course, we have Superman here, who's like stronger than all, who's like stronger beyond your wildest imaginations, and he's able to solve everything in a jiffy.
This is like the pre-crisis Superman who could literally move around planets in the solar system if he wanted to. So
yeah. I mean, look, he is easily able to like take down this creature in one fell swoop. But I do like yeah.
Is a hell of a bull-loss thrower, too, apparently. So.
And I do like there's an extra level of danger with Lois constantly getting her idiotic self in danger at every turn. I'm not sure whether to call her the bravest journalist or the worst journalist.
But it's definitely a reflection of the times where, he's the man. You will stay here, Lois. Okay, yes, my lord, type of thing.
She did actually say that, right?
Yeah,
that was weird.
Yeah.
Also, this is kind of messed up. Where it's like, is this T-Rex going to live in chains for the rest of his life?
Yeah, not able to move more than 2 feet.
Yeah.
That wouldn't go today either.
Oh, Clark.
Oh, you
cheeky bastard, you. So that was the 8-minute and 34-second short of the Max Fleischer Superman episode, The Arctic Giant. And so far, as short as it was, I feel like it was able to get a lot of storytelling done in such a short amount of time, and they were able to convey a lot of the scale and the danger surrounding the Arctic, the dinosaur himself.
Yeah, it definitely showed some pretty good city destruction scenes. The destruction of the dam was pretty good. Like you said, the destruction of the bridge was well done, and then echoed in a lot of recent movies and pre-recent movies where that looked kind of like the Golden Gate Bridge being destroyed, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So let's see that again. But it does, I think, show a lot of people have probably seen this film, filmmakers in the past, and borrowed from it, don't you think? With all the tropes we see?
Probably, yeah. I mean, even within Pacific Rim, we also saw the very first monster trespasser actually destroying the Golden Gate Bridge in a similar fashion in the beginning of that film.
Right. Now, what I don't know is how much accessibility this film would have had for people in Japan at the time, because this is obviously 41, right before the U.S. was involved in World War II. So I don't know if we were shipping too many films over there. And keep in mind, this is pre-TV, so this was only been shown like as a Saturday morning or matinee type of thing in a movie theater.
Yeah, I am aware that like Godzilla himself like was inspired by American cinema with films such as King Kong and The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, as I mentioned multiple times. So I wouldn't, and I know Superman is a internationally recognizable character, so I wouldn't be surprised if these shorts managed to find a way to Japan at some point, and may have possibly have been seen by a younger Ishiro Honda. But it could be a coincidence because, after all, Godzilla himself is just a reflection of the limited suit acting special effects that they had to deal with at the time, as well as a conglomeration of different attributes of different dinosaurs that were popular at the time and depicted in a fashion that was more closer to how dinosaurs were seen and depicted at that time. So it could, for all we know, there could be no connection between the Arctic Giant and Godzilla, and it all just could be a scary coincidence.
I think the least coincidental part that would lead people to think that it did influence Godzilla is the dorsal fins, because they're pretty unique to Godzilla, but they do appear in the Arctic Giant prior to Godzilla.
True, and the dorsal fins have been a feature that we've seen in other stereotypical portrayals of dinosaurs at the time. I mean, even the Rhedosaurus itself had a row of spines similar to the Arctic Giant. Although, again, the placement of the spines and the fact that they stop right at like the base of his neck is a bit suspicious there.
Yeah. What do you rate this film as, this short film, on our 5-star system? Which is Shoma's finally agreed to, by the way. I noticed.
Really, I have no issues with this. I mean, sure, it may seem a bit dated at times with the portrayal of Lois Lane, the damsel in distress, who's willing to be obedient to everything Superman says. But you know what? That was a reflection of the comics and of the time, and it was been years. Even still, they show Lois Lane as this spunky reporter who tries to go out of her way to do things to get the best story ever, and she does so by the end. So I can't really fault this. It's a real, any issues I have with it is simply a sign of the times, and on a technical level, it is a masterpiece of animation in that I can still see how this was as influential to people like Bruce Timm and other animators in the decades since. So I'm giving this a 5 out of 5. It sets out to tell a very simple story in a short amount of time in the most over-the-top fashion, to the best of their ability, and I think they did it in Stroves.
I totally concur. I think even today that this animation holds up pretty well, and the story is compact but holds up well. Mm-hmm. And it's been how many years since then? And it still holds up.
Yeah,
so I give it 5 stars as well.
All right, excellent. Now, as a little bonus for you guys, despite, as we mentioned before, it's a very short piece of animation, so we decided to look at the next piece of Godzilla in animation. Now, this is technically Godzilla, but it's not really official, I would say. This is the 1969 short Bambi Meets Godzilla, and for those of you who don't know, this was actually a short that I believe was included either within animation compilations on VHSs, or it was actually the way I saw it, it was on. It was included at the beginning of a VHS release of Godzilla 1985, which I believe that was how you came across it as well, right?
Yes, I can distinctly remember seeing it as a kid before that film. So it was a nice little entry into that film with this.
Mm-hmm. So let's get started. We are looking at a version on YouTube once again called Bambi Meets Godzilla. It has 752,000 views as of the time of this recording. Uploaded by an individual by the name of Amon Dice. So everybody get ready to press play in 3, 2, 1, go. And what we have here is essentially a really long setup to a very brief joke.
Yeah.
And, you know what? Because I've been doing a lot of talking, I'll let you take over. What do you have to say about this particular short?
Well, it's obviously done very quick and very on the fly, but I think that's what gives it its charm, if you will, is that it's very simple. Clearly, Marv Newland had a lot to do with this, if not everything, as we'll see.
I wonder what gave you that choreography. All right, Bambi, you're going to sit there and you're going to eat these flowers, Shave. Now don't pay attention to the giant foot that's about the giant foot of death that's above you. Oh, I love
Marv Newland,
produced by Mr. and Mrs. Newland.
Oh, and there we go, Godzilla. No kind of lead up, no steps, no earth shaking. Just Godzilla comes down and crushes him. I love that the legs spray out too like that, like roadkill. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Just quick slide. The end.
And you know what? You can easily take Godzilla out of the title. Oh, okay. We gratefully acknowledge the city of Tokyo.
Tokyo.
I love how, if they take Godzilla out of for their help in obtaining Godzilla for this film, I love how you can easily take Godzilla's name out of this, and you can easily sell this as like a generic dinosaur. But no, the fact that it's Godzilla, it's like two popular characters in animation, just makes it like really all the more ridiculous. And I just love the dark sense of humor here.
It's fantastic, and it's quick, and it's black and white. I guess they're able to get away with this using sort of like what Saturday Night Live does with like parody laws. Is that what they're able to do? Because I don't think that Marv Newland probably contacted Toho and said, I'm going to use Godzilla for this, correct?
Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's like he just never profited off of this. Maybe this was just like a little side project he did for laughs, and this just quickly spread. Maybe this was like a thing that he shared for the lulz at a film festival or something.
No, it is cool, and I'll tell you what else is great is I have two little girls, and there's nothing to freak them out like showing them this, because they love Disney and they love Bambi, and they like Godzilla too because they're my kids. But it's like, hey, check this out, and then just out of nowhere, Bambi gets squished by Godzilla.
Let's see. Oh, okay. Apparently, according to Wikipedia, the program ran in theaters across America in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It ran for several years. Let's see. It was paired with another film, I guess. Okay, so this is a movie this was a short film that was actually kind of shown around and paired with other film projects. Oh, and apparently it's being preserved by the Academy Film Archives, and it's been preserved under them since 2009. So I guess this does have some sort of cinematic notoriety, and has quite a reputation for this thing.
Yeah, no, right. It's funny as hell. Like you said, it's a short setup, but it's worth it when you get there, especially if you haven't seen it before. So.
And you know what? This actually, on the last note, I would say this reminds me a lot of modern day animation on YouTube, where I've noticed a lot of animators would create these short, bizarre parodies of things that they like. Look at anything from like Oniji or Ego Raptor. Or what was his name? Yukino Joe. They make a lot of these like short 1 minute, 2 minute video parodies of video games and movie characters, and just like twist them and distort them into like these ridiculous like mockeries, I guess you could say. And so I feel like Bambi feels like the very first YouTube animation video.
Oh, it really does. And considering what is this from 1969, I think we said.
Yeah. From the summer of 69.
69, yeah.
Whoa,
I got Bambi meets Godzilla. The sad part is if you and I were live in 69, this is what we're doing, is tracking this down to go see it in the theater, right? I mean...
all 1 minute and 30 seconds of it.
Yeah, but it was worth it.
Absolutely. And so I believe this wraps up our first installment of our retrospective on... Oh, yeah?
You gotta give a star rating to Bambi meets Godzilla.
Okay, I'll give it a 10 out of 5. Best animation
me too.
ever. Fuck Max Fleischer.
Damn right,
He
Max
doesn't
Fleischer.
know shit compared to Mr. Max Newland here.
Or Marv Newland.
Or
I wouldn't even know
Marv Newland, yeah, that guy.
We don't even know who produced Max Fleischer. We know who produced Marv Newland. So.
Of course, Mr. and Mrs. Newland, the greatest contributors to animation. So
Indeed.
Yes. Before we wrap things up, you said that you had an announcement you want to make. Am I correct?
Yes. So I just came up with this a few hours ago, but I've already got a lot of people on board. And you and I will do definitely an episode in the future where we go more into this. But I've contacted a bunch of other kaiju authors and artists, including friends of the show like Chris Martinez, other friends of mine like Zach Cole, Chris Nigro, Timothy Price, and Alan O.W. Barnes. And what we want to do is create a charity called Kaiju versus Cancer. And what we're going to do is have artwork and hopefully t-shirts and such for sale of our original kaiju either working together or battling each other, and sell the prints and hopefully the t-shirts and donate the proceeds to St. Jude's Hospital for child cancer research. And our tagline is going to be Kaiju can beat anything. So as you and I have talked about before, and can Draco Zul be a part of this?
Abso-freaking-lutely, man. If it is for the fight against cancer, I'd be more than willing to include my big blue robot in the hopes to for the procedures in the hopes of one day beating this awful, awful disease.
Yes, because as much as we have fun with kaiju and giant monsters, whether it be like cool for wrecking things and cool fights, or funny like Bambi meets Godzilla, if we can have an impact in the real world, I think that's makes a big difference. Especially cancer is a horrible disease, and we all know somebody who's been affected by cancer. And for kids that are, and for kids that are hit by it, I mean, there's just really no sadder thing. But as kaiju creators, this could be hopefully an opportunity for us to strike out against it. So we're going to reach out to more friends that we have in the community, artists and authors, and try to build this up. And look for it. Follow me on Facebook. I'm sure you can link it to yours as well as my website and everything else.
As always, I'll have your links in the description of this video below. And so, yeah, it sounds like a very fun project. And, you know, if we can have fun while also fighting, helping to cure an awful disease, and while having fun doing collaborations with our own characters and spreading the word out on this campaign, I feel like it'll be a lot of fun and can do a lot of good to this world. Thank you very much for including me in this collaborative project, and I can't wait to see how this will turn out, my friend.
Sure, and I think one of your catchphrases will fit perfectly here. I know whenever people ask you if this monster could be that monster, you always say,
yes! Always.
But I'm hoping we can get, if I were to ask you, hey, Andres, can our kaiju be cancer? Can you give me a big...
Yes!
There we go. So like you said, fun with it, but I will get this up and running some more. I'm going to contact St. Jude's officially and see what we can do with them. But I think this is a cool thing we can do. So let's do this.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, you can check out the next installment of Godzilla in Animation, where we will be covering the Hanna-Barbera adaptation of everybody's favorite King of the Monsters. So tune in next time for our look into that. Not a commentary this time. This will actually be a full-on review of said series. So tune in next time for our review for the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla. Until then, I have been Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir.
I have been Matt Dennion. Please check me out on Facebook at Matt Dennion and Matthew Dennion for my author, and MatthewDennion.com on my website.
And until next time, everybody, take care.